Superman is too woke, he yells as they drag him into the asylum. But what if I say I agree? I think Superman wanting to prevent the murder of thousands of innocent people is terrible. What's next? A superhero movie that says everyone should have access to food and clean water? That was a joke, for those of you who don't get sarcasm. I never expected that a $400 million superhero film would carry some of the most important messages that people need to hear right now. I was even more surprised to learn that Superman 2025 included a political conflict that very closely reflected the current conflict between Palestine and Israel. Hollywood at large has avoided directly addressing the violence Israel has been committing against Palestine for the last 70 years. There have been a few actors and individuals in the film industry who have spoken out in defense of Palestine, but many of them have been punished for doing so. Considering this, it was shocking to watch Superman fight in defense of Jarhanpur, a nation that resembles Palestine, and fight against Barrera, a nation that resembles Israel. Many people who watched Superman immediately identified the film as pro-Palestine.
I saw the new Superman film last night. Tell me why it is as anti-Israel as people are making out to be.
This Superman actually said free Palestine.
This sparked conversation across the internet and media publications. Is Superman really pro-Palestine? Was it James Gunn's intention for audiences to see a resemblance between Superman's geopolitical conflict and the conflict in the Middle East? Why does this matter? First, we need to understand how Superman 2025 represented politics and why many people immediately drew a parallel to Palestine's struggle against Israel. The Superman movie's conflict centered on Superman intervening in a foreign invasion. Superman prevented the nation of Barrera from invading the bordering country of Jarhanpur. Barrera was depicted as the stronger country among the two that has an alliance with the United States. The US enabled Barrera's invasion of Jarhanpur by not admonishing their actions. Jarhanpur, on the other hand, was a poor nation that lacked the facilities to fight against such a powerful antagonist. Superman was clearly against the violent and unjust invasion and fought against it, despite it causing him a lot of backlash. The movie showed that Barrera was run by an evil tyrant leader who had no respect for morals or good like Superman did. Barrera's invasion and violence was never justified by the film or illustrated as self-defense against a smaller, less powerful nation that wouldn't be able to commit even 1/10 of the violence committed against them. While the nations in the film are fictional, it wasn't hard for viewers to draw parallels to real geopolitical issues. As soon as the film came out, I saw countless TikToks touting Superman as a pro-Palestine film, and that caught me off guard because Hollywood has been avoidant about what's going on in Palestine. This made me more curious, and so I went to the theater and the parallels were so clear. Barrera can easily be seen as a stand-in for Israel as they are significantly more powerful than Palestine. They are backed by the US, they have a stronger military, and their attacks against Palestine over the last 70 years have surpassed any form of self-defense Palestine has tried to muster. Israel has made it clear that their intention is to destroy most of Palestine and turn it into Israeli land. Israel has slowly invaded Palestine over decades, and that has caused the current borders. The people of Jarhanpur are also portrayed by Middle Eastern and Southeast Asian actors, which is another major parallel. The US's role in Superman and real life also shares many similarities. The United States is an ally to Israel, and they have sent over $20 billion in military aid to Israel. The US hasn't been completely honest about the crimes Israel has committed against Palestine. Instead, many American media outlets have painted the situation as a war. This contrasts the way the US handled Russia's invasion of Ukraine. The United States and the American media's lack of transparency about Israel's humanitarian crimes is also because there are many powerful Americans, like Lex Luthor, who have developed a business-government alliance that has only prolonged the situation. Many people picked up on the parallels immediately, and several internet personalities and publications celebrated this. Superman felt like a breath of fresh air because in an industry where people have been scared to speak up about Palestine, it felt amazing to see one of the biggest films of the year directly or indirectly depict the issue in a good-intentioned way. The film's ending also felt bittersweet because while it was nice to see the Justice Gang save Jarhanpur considering how outpowered they were by the Baravian military forces, it also made me wish superheroes existed in real life to enforce good in the world. However, an article on the blog The Nerds of Color highlights that one doesn't need to be a superhero. One needs to be like Malik Ali, the bystander food vendor who went out of his way to help a downed Superman despite the extraordinary circumstances they were in. Audiences resonated with Superman's inspiring messages and how it emphasized the importance of doing good even when it's difficult. While pro-Palestine advocates were pleased by the movie and its do-good message, many Zionists felt that the film was anti-Israel. An article from the Jerusalem Post discussed how many Israel supporters online were annoyed with the parallels. The article mentioned one Reddit post on r r/Israel that stated, "I find it so disrespectful and distressing that a superhero created by two Jewish artists is now being used to promote anti-Israel messages to the world." First of all, there are many Jewish people who are anti-Israel, anti-Zionist, and pro-Palestine. Judaism and Zionism are not one and the same, so I find it disrespectful and distressing that people equate the two because they are two different things. Several Zionists have expressed their resentment towards how many people have interpreted the political plot as an allegory for Palestine and Israel. Despite the obvious similarities, Zionists desperately deny that the film has anything to do with what Israel is doing to Palestine. The only way in which Zionists can justify their belief that the film is not pro-Palestine is by denying that there is any political agenda or fabricating lies that twist the reality of the situation. The Jerusalem Post denies the connection by stating, "Israel, after all, was invaded by Hamas, not the other way around, while it is Israel that stands isolated among countries that have longed for its destruction." This is a blatant lie. This is like saying Native Americans invaded the land that belonged to them before they were violently forced out by European settlers. The interesting thing about this article is that it draws parallels between the story and the real-life conflict, but still resents the fact that many people have concluded that the film is pro-Palestine. The article states, "The villain Lex Luthor is an Elon Musk-style billionaire and military contractor who hopes to create a sort of technological paradise on the rubble of Jaranpur. This directly mirrors the intentions of many wealthy figures who desire to build real estate on ruined Gaza land. Israel's finance minister has directly said, 'We've done the demolition phase. Now we need to build.' And he has described the Gaza Strip as a real estate bonanza." Far-right internet commentator and Zionist Ben Shapiro completely denied that Superman had any parallels to Israel and Palestine and said that Superman doesn't have a political agenda. He asserted that liberals were projecting their own ideas and beliefs onto the film. One, saying Superman 2025 doesn't have a political agenda is just categorically untrue. The plot centers a political conflict between two countries, and it makes a clear stand against the political actions or inaction of certain countries. The film's politics are ruled by morals and a sense of good, but that doesn't make it not political. Second, the parallels are blatant. Shapiro and many other Zionists just don't want to acknowledge it because it plainly shows that Israel is in the wrong. It's clear that Zionists are uncomfortable that so many people identified a clear connection because Barrera, which is most similar to Israel, is clearly painted as the villain in Superman. Zionists would much rather avoid the truth about what Israel is doing and their role because they want to justify the massive amount of violence that they have committed. So, was it James Gunn's intention to make a film that people regard as pro-Palestine? In an interview with the Times of London, he said, "When I wrote this, the Middle Eastern conflict wasn't happening, so I tried to do little things to move it away from that. But it doesn't have anything to do with the Middle East. It's an invasion by a much more powerful country run by a despot into a country that's problematic in terms of its political history, but has totally no defense against the other country. It really is fictional." There is a part of his quote to the Times of London that is confusing though, because according to him, he wrote the film before the Middle Eastern conflict started. He turned in the script to DC Studios in May 2023. So according to Gunn, the Middle Eastern conflict only started later that year, even though it was happening for over 70 years before that. Based on Gunn's statement, he wrote Superman when the conflict wasn't happening, but he also tried to do little things to move it away from the conflict. These are two contradicting statements. How could Gunn do little things to move it away from a conflict that he said wasn't happening at the time he was writing the script? He then goes on to describe the geopolitical conflict in Superman as an invasion by a much more powerful country run by a despot into a country that's problematic in terms of its political history, but has totally no defense against the other country. He might as well have been describing the situation between Israel and Palestine. He ended the statement by saying, "It really is fictional." And to that I say, no shit. Barrera and Jaranpur are two fictional countries in a fictional world with superheroes. We know it's fiction, but fiction can still reflect reality. The Hunger Games is fictional, but it was inspired by how the violence of the Iraq War was being broadcast on TV alongside trivial reality TV shows. Granted, the author of the Hunger Games, Suzanne Collins, shared that the Iraqi War inspired her series, but audiences have also connected it to many other political issues, including the humanitarian crisis in Palestine. During the 2024 Met Gala, users on TikTok discussed the disturbing juxtaposition between rich celebrities playing dress-up and all of the documented suffering of Palestinians at the hands of Israel and their allies. It immediately drew comparison to the wealthy people of the capital partying and wasting resources while the people in poor districts starved and fought for their lives. Even though Collins didn't intend intend for audiences to make the connection between her books and Palestine, it doesn't make the parallels less valid. So Gunn had no intention to make a pro-Palestine film. However, this doesn't make Superman 2025 less pro-Palestine. Whether it was on purpose or not, the film does have parallels to the conflict. At its basis, Superman is against invading countries and enacting violence against people who lack the means to fully defend themselves. This is the heart of the pro-Palestine movement. It's fascinating to me how Superman accidentally became this Trojan horse to discuss an important topic that Hollywood has avoided. However, it's not surprising to me that Gunn seemed afraid to admit the connection between Superman and Palestine because Hollywood has punished so many individuals who have chosen to speak up about Palestine. It is rumored that Melissa Barrera was cut from the Scream franchise for making pro-Palestine statements on social media. Palestinian singer Nemesis was dropped by her record label for calling for the freedom of her people. Even industry veterans like Susan Sarandon aren't safe from this backlash. United Talent Agency cut ties with Sarandon after she spoke at a pro-Palestine rally in 2023. While Gunn seemed uncomfortable about directly addressing the suffering of Palestinians, it's not because Superman is not political. Superman has always been political. The story of Superman has always been interpreted as an allegory for immigrants and the struggles immigrants face. In fact, Gunn has been outspoken about calling Superman an immigrant story. Superman is an alien from the planet Krypton, and his parents sent him to Earth to protect him. He was adopted by a couple in a farming town called Smallville, and he tried to fit in while still remaining true to himself. The creators of Superman, Jerry Siegel and Joe Shuster, based the superhero story off of the experiences of Jewish immigrants and their experience as the children of Jewish immigrants. On an episode of the Superman show Smallville, Clark Kent hid and protected an undocumented immigrant from the authorities. The episode highlighted how immigrants are exploited for labor and how their existence is criminalized. Clark even fought against his mother, Martha, and drew the parallel between his existence as an alien from a different planet and immigrants. James Gunn didn't shy away from discussing the immigrant aspect of the story and character. His comments about Superman being an immigrant even garnered backlash from conservatives who felt like he was projecting a liberal perspective on a superhero film. Sound familiar? Because of this, Fox News labeled the film super woke. Despite the backlash, Gunn stood by his statement. His brother defended him by saying, "Yes, Superman is an immigrant, and yes, the people we support in this country are immigrants, and if you don't like that, you're not American. People who say no to immigrants are against the American way." How is it that people can understand that Superman is an immigrant story, but can't wrap their heads around the fact that a character who says he couldn't let people die can be pro-Palestine? While calling Superman an immigrant caused Gunn to get backlash from Fox News and right-wing folks, it didn't cause James Gunn to lose his job and get dropped by his agency. This demonstrates that some people are only willing to say something political when it's safe to do so and the backlash is minimal. Right now, in almost any industry, speaking up about Palestine is a risk. People have lost their jobs, been dropped by their agencies for saying, "Stop Palestinians and destroying their land." Many non-Black people were only ready to talk about Black Lives Matter when it became globally mainstream in 2020, and so many people were speaking up. You're not brave just because you do the right thing only when it's safe. That's exactly what Superman 2025 was about. He was willing to do the right thing even if it caused backlash, was the hard way to deal with the issue, or everyone else was against him following his morals. Superman suffered a lot throughout the film because he chose to do what's right even if it was hard. He didn't want to kill the kaiju monster that was destroying Metropolis because he doesn't believe in killing. This made the situation more difficult to deal with, but he firmly maintained his values and morals. He prevented Barrera from invading Jaranpur even though he was dragged by the American press for involving himself. All he knew was that the people of Jaranpur were dying at the hands of Barrera, and that wasn't right. It was that simple. It's clear that many people in Hollywood don't possess the bravery that the characters they write and play do. Very often, Hollywood only engages with politics in a performative way and doesn't care about engaging with politics in a hands-on, meaningful way that creates positive change. Ultimately, Superman is inherently political, and the franchise has historically engaged with political concepts. Even if it wasn't James Gunn's intention to make Superman pro-Palestine, the fictional political conflict shares many parallels to Palestine and Israel, and Superman's beliefs aligns with that of the pro-Palestine cause.